everyone, welcome back to GK Today. I'm Nuzhat Sana and in this video I'll discuss today's top current and static general studies questions for UPSC Prelims Examination 2022 onwards. And these questions are framed keeping in view both the factual as well as analytical aspects of UPSC Prelims exam. Also, I would like to inform you that these questions are part of GK Today's UPSC Prelims test series, which is available in GK Today Android app. And the test series for 2022 Prelims examination comprises total of 7500 questions, divided 2500 questions on current general studies and 5000 questions on static general studies. And the series has started from May 2021 and it will end with UPSC Prelims Examinations 2022. So if you wish to access all questions of GK Today UPSC Prelims test series, you may subscribe the test series in the app. So now without wasting any further time, let's get started.
So today this is our lecture number 39 and now let's start. Question number 1. With reference to Citizens Charter, which of the following is our correct statements? So regarding Citizens Charter, two statements have been given and we have to identify which of them are correct. So before that we have to understand what is Citizens Charter. This is actually a framework for delivery of services and it is a document issued by a service provider, for example any government department, that outlines its service commitments. Okay, so this concept was adopted in India in the year 1997 at the conference of chief ministers of various states and union territories, and the Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances is the coordinating agency for citizen charters adopted by various government agencies. In simple words, you can say that citizens charter are actually a set of commitments made by an organization regarding the standards of service that it delivers. Fine. So the right of citizens for time-bound delivery of goods and services and redressal of their grievances bill 2021 was recently in news, and it seeks to create a mechanism to ensure the timely delivery of goods and services to the citizens. So it requires every public authority to publish a citizens charter within 6 months of commencement of act and levies a penalty of up to 50,000 rupees for failure to render the services. Okay, so the basic principles of any service delivery are: first of all, it should be in best quality. Secondly, choice. Third is proper standard should be maintained. Fourth is value. Fifth is accountability. Sixth is transparency. And last is participative. Okay. Now what are the shortcomings of Citizens Charter in India? First of all, it is devoid of any participative mechanism. Secondly, it has poor design and content. Then it lacks public awareness. I need some more space to write here. Then these charters are rarely updated. The civil society organizations and NGOs are totally ignored. Also, it has a type of tendency to make a uniform citizen charter. And yes, the measurable standards of delivery are rarely defined. Okay, so these are the problems. Now what are the measures to have these problems? First of all, we have to believe in the concept that one size does not fit at all. Secondly, there should be a wide consultation process. Thirdly, firm commitments to be made. Then there should be periodic evaluation of Citizens Charter, and also it should include the civil society in the process. Okay. Now let's read the statements. First statement says it is legally enforceable. No, it is not legally enforceable. This is wrong. Second is the Second Administrative Reform Commission recommended for a uniform framework of Citizens Charter. Actually, one of the Second Administrative Reform Commission recommendations was localizing and customizing citizen charters across organization instead of a uniform framework. So this is also wrong and correct answer becomes option number D. Now next question. With reference to the various archaeological sites of India in news in recent times, consider the following pairs. Let's see if the pairs are right or not. First is Trirashmi caves in Maharashtra. Actually, these Buddhist caves, or you can say Pandav Leni, is located in Nashik, Maharashtra. And these are the Buddhist caves that were carved between 1st century BCE and 3rd century CE. Also, it is an Archaeological Survey of India protected site that bears total of 23 caves. Okay, so this is right. Second is Heer Benkal in Karnataka. This is actually a megalithic site located in the Koppal district of Karnataka, and it has been listed in the UNESCO World Heritage Site tentative list. Okay, this is also right. Third is Bheda Ghat in Chhattisgarh. Bheda Ghat is actually located in Jabalpur district of Madhya Pradesh, and it is sometimes called the Grand Canyon of India. So this does not lie in Chhattisgarh, hence it is wrong. Fourth is Telhara University in Bihar. This is actually an ancient university in Nalanda district of Bihar, and the site has been dated back to the Gupta period. Hence it is also right, and correct answer becomes 1, 2 and 4, option number C. Now earlier we have talked about some of the important texts related to Buddhism. For example, we talked about Jataks. It comprises the stories of previous birth of Buddha in the form of poems. Secondly, there was Vinay Pitak, also called as Book of Discipline, and it deals with the monastic rules for monks and nuns. Then there was Abhidhamma Pitak. It comprises the philosophy and doctrine of Buddhism, and it is divided into total 7 books. Okay, Vinay Pitak is divided into 3 books further. Then there is Milind Panho. It contains the dialogue between Buddhist monk Nagsena and Indo-Greek king Neander. Okay, so these are some of the important books regarding Buddhism, and let's talk about some of the important places regarding Buddhism. First is Ellora Caves. These are a UNESCO World Heritage Site located in Aurangabad district of Maharashtra, and caves 1 to 12 hold Buddhist monuments and vihars. Secondly, there are Ajanta Caves. These are another UNESCO World Heritage Site located in Aurangabad, Maharashtra, and the site has 30 rock-cut Buddhist caves. Then third is Elephanta Caves. These are also a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and the site has Buddhist stupa and various caves. And last is Mahabodhi Temple in Bodh Gaya, Bihar. This is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it marks the site where Buddha attained enlightenment. Okay. Next question. The National Rare Disease Policy 2021 makes provisions for. First of all, what was the aim of this policy? To increase focus on indigenous research and local production of medicines. Then, to reduce the cost of treatment of rare diseases. Also, one of the aim is to detect the rare disease at an early stage, which will in turn help in their prevention. And what are the rare diseases? Actually, these are life-threatening diseases with a low prevalence and a high level of complexity. So 80% of these diseases are of genetic origin, and nearly 50% affect children. Also, no cure exists for the vast majority. And example of these category diseases are, first of all, LSD, then cystic fibrosis, hemophilia, etc. Okay. Now, the National Rare Disease Policy categorizes diseases into 3 groups depending on the treatment requirements. Okay. First group require only one-time curative treatment. Then group 2 requires lifelong treatment, and group 3 requires lifelong and expensive treatment. And the patients suffering from group 1 diseases are eligible for financial support under Rashtriya Arogya Nidhi. Now let's come to the options. First is establishment of National Rare Disease Authority. No, this is wrong. Second is creation of National Registry of Rare Diseases. Actually, the policy calls for the creation of a national registry for the rare diseases based on hospitals. So this is right. And third is financial support for certain category of diseases. Already I have told you, for the first category patients, they would get financial support from Rashtriya Arogya Nidhi. So this is also right, and correct answer becomes only 2 and 3. Actually, the policy calls for designating 8 healthcare facilities as centers of excellence, and these will be receiving the financial support for upgradation. And the policy also seeks crowdfunding from corporates and individuals through a robust IT platform for treating the rare diseases. Okay. Next question. Consider the following blue flag beaches of India and their pairs with respective states. First of all, what are blue flag beaches? So those beaches which bears blue flag certification are known as blue flag beaches. And this certificate is an international recognition awarded to the clean, environment friendly and safe beaches across the world. And the beaches are evaluated based on 33 criteria related to environment, safety, services, education, accessibility, etc. And this certificate is awarded by Foundation for Environmental Education, which is headquartered in Copenhagen in Denmark. So the international jury that evaluates the applications comprises of members from IUCN, United Nations Environment Programme, FEE and World Tourism Organization. So why it was in news? Because in October 2020, 8 Indian beaches got this tag, and which are these? First is Shivrajpur in Dwarka, Gujarat. Second is Ghogla, Diu. Third is Kasaragod in Karnataka. Fourth is Kappad in Kerala. Fifth is Rushikonda in Andhra Pradesh. Sixth is Golden Beach in Odisha. Seventh is Radhanagar in Andaman and Nicobar Islands. And eighth is Padubidri in Karnataka. Okay. Now let's see the options. Shivrajpur, Gujarat, yes, this is right. Ghogla, Diu, correct. Radhanagar, Karnataka, this is wrong because it lies in Andaman and Nicobar. And fourth is Kasaragod in Kerala, no, it lies in Karnataka. Okay, so right answer becomes only 1 and 2, that is option number A. Now on the lines of blue flag certification, India has also launched its own eco-label named as BEAMS. It stands for Beach Environment and Aesthetics Management Services, and it comes under ICZM program, means Integrated Coastal Zone Management Program. So it was launched by SECOM, that is Safety of Integrated Coastal Management, and Union Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Okay. Now coming to last question, consider the following statements about UNCLOS, means United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. First statement says, Article 87, Clause 1 of this convention defines freedom of navigation operations. Actually, freedom of navigation is one of the principles of customary international law that allows the ships flying the flag of a sovereign state to sail without any interference from other states except in the matters provided for under international law. And this includes the vessel's freedom of movement, freedom to transport goods and passengers, freedom to enter a port, and to use the dockyards and to load or unload goods. Okay, so this principle is codified under Article 87, Clause 1 of UNCLOS. This is right. And second statement is, India is a signatory of this convention. Yes, this is also right. And correct answer becomes both 1 and 2. Now why it was in news? Because recently PCA, that is Permanent Court of Arbitration, has delivered a verdict on the murder of 2 Keralite fishermen in the Enrica Lexi case. And this convention basically defines the rights and responsibilities of nations with respect to their use of world's oceans, and also it establishes the guidelines for business, environment and management of marine natural resources. Okay. Currently 167 countries and European Union have joined the convention, and the convention has created 3 new institutions on the international scene. First is ITLOS, that is International Tribunal for the Law of Sea. Second is ISA, that is International Seabed Authority. And third is CLCS, means Commission on the Limits of Continental Shelf. Okay. So that's it for today. I hope you have liked the session. If you want to give any review, feedback or suggestion regarding these lectures, you can tell us in the comment section. Definitely we'll try to implement that. And now we'll meet again tomorrow with 5 more new and interesting questions. Till then, stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching. And please do not forget to subscribe to GK Today. With this, me Nuzhat Sana signing off.